Hello everyone, this is Felix from GMWolf. Today we're having a look at how we can create a very simple click and drag camera system for GameMaker Studio 2. Now in this tutorial, we're going to have a look at the new gesture events that GameMaker Studio 2 has to offer, as well as how we can use some very simple camera manipulations. So without any further ado, let's get right into the code. Alright, so our starting project here is just a very simple scene, and if I run it you'll see it's just a very simple tile map and a couple of these grass objects, which if you want to learn how to create yourself, you can check the annotation in the top right hand corner. So what we're going to start off by doing is creating an actual view that we can manipulate, and we're going to do this in the room property by going inside viewports and cameras underneath the room properties. We're going to click on enable viewport to allow all the different viewports, and then we're going to open our view 0 and select visible. Now we're going to leave everything else as default. So now we can close up the room and create a new object. So this object is going to be named OCamera, and it's going to be the object that manipulates our camera. So we're going to create an event, the create event, which will initialize our object. So let's make this nice and big, and init camera. So the first step is to actually get the camera to manipulate, and by creating the view like we did in the room editor, it will automatically create a camera for us to use. And so we can simply write camera is equal to view underscore camera at view 0. Now if you wanted to create your own camera rather than using the room editor one, you could write camera underscore create and then set all of your properties through the camera that it returns, or camera creates view, which will also provide you with a bunch of arguments that you can use to change how the camera works. But we're just going to use the one that's provided for us. The next step is to define two variables, which we're going to call drag underscore room underscore x and set it to 0. Same with drag room y. Now what these variables will represent is the position in which we clicked in the room, which will be used in order to anchor our mouse on that point. What I mean by that is we will move the view such that the mouse always stays at the same position in the room, and this is how we're going to affect that. This is how we're going to achieve that nice dragging effect. So what we're going to do now is add an event, and this is when we start looking at gestures. So if you're not new to GameMaker, you may have noticed that these new gesture events, you may not know about them because they've been added quite recently in GameMaker. And so there's a bunch of tapping and other gestures which you can use to check if something is being done on the object. However, we're working with a view, so we really want us to be able to drag anywhere. So we're going to use the global gesture events, and we're going to start off with global drag start. Now this event gets called when you start dragging your mouse, or so when you click down and start moving it. So this is really quite useful to start getting offsets and so on. And what we're going to set here is the variables we define inside the create event, the drag room x and drag room y. So we're going to write drag underscore room underscore x, and we're going to set that to the point in the room at which we're clicking. Now we could use mouse underscore x. However, the dragging events, the gesture events, provide us with this neat map called event data, which holds a bunch of information about the event, and one of them is the position in the room at which you clicked. So we can actually access that map using the question mark accessor, and the value we want to access is pos x, which is the x position of the mouse in the room. Now we can also call drag room y is equal to event data question mark pos y. So that will be the y position in the room. Remember to close your speech marks. This is it for the drag start. All we need to do now is update our camera inside our gesture global dragging. So this gets called every step as long as you're dragging your mouse. So what we're going to have is two temporary variables for the x and y coordinates at which we want to move our view, and we're doing them separately just for clarity's sake. So we're going to say that underscore x, which will be our new camera position, will be equal to our drag position that we had, what we calculated before, drag room x, minus, and here what we want is not the new position of the mouse in the room, we want the position of the mouse in the view. And once again, we can use the event data map and access roll pause x, written with everything non-capitalized aside from the last x. So if you think about it, by subtracting the position of the mouse inside the room, inside the view, by the point in the room we want our mouse to be on top of, we will get the x position of the camera at which it will satisfy that condition. So now we can do the same for the y position by writing drag room y minus event data question mark roll pause y. So now that we have our x and y positions, we can actually change our camera's position by calling camera set view position, which is down here. Now remember, in the create event, we actually got our camera a camera variable here, so we can add our camera in here. And now the new x and y positions, which we just defined earlier on. So now we can save this and add it to our room. So let's open our room, find our object in our resource tree, and add it to the instance layer, that is. So make sure you select the instance layer, edit anywhere in your room. I like to put mine in the top left-hand corner, or maybe just below the tiles if there are any. I've also seen quite a lot of the tutorial by Yo-Yo Games where they would actually put them up here outside the view, which is quite nice to do as well. It really doesn't matter. In the end, it's a choice based on your workflow and so on. But now it's looking just like before. I just ran it. However, if I click and move my mouse, as you can see, I can now move my view around. Now it gets a little bit funky if you go outside of the room. Actually, there's a pretty simple fix for that, which I will show afterwards if you actually do want your camera to be able to move outside. But as you can see, it does a really satisfying one-to-one mapping of my mouse movement. It feels very, very good. So about this outside the view thing, let's go ahead and fix that. That's actually a really simple solution. You go inside viewports and camera, and here you have clear viewport background. And it's a simple checkbox which will ensure that it will clear not only the general display buffer, but also your viewport buffer. So now I can go ahead and scroll outside. Now it is important to know that this will slightly impact your performance, but generally speaking it won't matter too much. Now there is something to take a note of, and that is that now whenever I drag my mouse around, it will also register click events. So to demonstrate this, let's create a very quick object. Let's actually create a new sprite for this. And this is really taking it to the next level, you know, seeing what we can do. So if I just create a sprite like so, and I'm actually going to give it two images. One will be white, the other one I'll make, let's say black, or maybe dark gray, just in case, against the background. And what I'll do is create a new quick object that will actually take that sprite. I'm going to call it oClickTest, and create a quick create event. Actually, I don't. This is just a test, so documentation really doesn't matter. And I'm just going to write image speed equals 0. Now, just as a note, this is just a test object in order to demonstrate a problem that you may have along the line. So if I go inside here and add a mouse left pressed, and I just increase my image index just to show that we have a click, I'll just add this object to our room. I'll clicking test object to our room. Let's actually select the instances. Let's add one here and add one here, just just because. And let's run it. So you will see that I can click them and it will alternate their color. However, if I start dragging when mousing over them, all I want to do is move the view. However, it is also registering the click. However, GameMaker has us covered to fix that. So let's close this and show you how to fix it. It's actually quite a simple solution. And instead, all you have to do is, instead of using the left press event, simply change it by, right clicking on it, change event, and select the gesture tap. So the gesture tap event is very similar to a left press and so on, but rather than only requiring a left press, it will also require a release. On top of that, if it registers a drag event whilst you're clicking, whilst you're doing the full click cycle, it will not trigger the tap event. So that means you can nicely separate your tapping and your dragging to do all the different things you want. So as you can see, I can still click on it to change its color, but if I drag my mouse around, even though I click on the object, it registers a drag first, and so it doesn't register the tap event. This is great. For example, if you're making a sort of strategy game and you want to be able to drag around, it's actually especially nice if you're working on mobile, because we actually work with multiple touch and so on, so it means you don't have to keep track of all your different mouse index and so on. So yeah, this is it for this tutorial. Really short, but really effective. As you can see, you can have this really nice drag effect. As I said, for mobile games, this is great. It's also great for strategy games, or maybe if you want to have maybe not even a game, you're just dragging around, say, in like a workspace and so on. So I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial. If you have, please give it a like and subscribe for more if you haven't already. If you have any questions about this or anything else GameMaker related, please ask down below in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time for some more GameMaker tutorials.